Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Around the Ballpark podcast. Today is September 19th, and we are going to be talking all things Universal Studios Orlando Resort. This is part one of a four-part series coming up, so hopefully you get a lot out of this. I know I will. Along for the ride tonight, we have Jake Redmond, as usual, our producer, as well as my co-host, Darian Redmond. We also have fan of the show and good friend of mine, Brian Boyd, with us as well. We've had him on as well in the past, covering the Houston Astros. But tonight, our guest of honor is Theme Park Groupie. So excited to have you on board talking all things Universal Orlando. I know all things theme parks are your bread and butter, so really excited to dive into that. But before we do, Darren, will you share a word from our sponsor?
Attention Palm Bay and everybody else. You have tax troubles? Don't worry, because Nashville Tax Solution has you covered. Whether you're behind on your returns, you're facing a lien, or you just need expert advice because something came up, their team is ready to help. Here's what one of the clients had to say who emailed me. Chris Bennett and his team saved me from a financial nightmare. His team is knowledgeable, they're clear, they're compassionate, and most of all, they listen. So don't let taxes stress you out. Reach out to Nashville Tax Solutions today. In fact, call right after this live podcast. Call 615-502-2250. That's 615-502-2250. Or visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com. Or you can just email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions.com. Nashville Tax Solutions, where tax resolution is achieved.
Yes, it is achieved. And as we know, fan of the show, we have Chris Bennett with National Tax Solutions. So glad that you partnered with us from the very beginning. I say this often, but it's so important to say. Just back when we were just over 100 subscribers, you believed in us so early on. And to see almost 850 subscribers just in the last 2 months alone is a testament to all you guys watching along with us. And just again, shout out. Thank you so much, Chris Bennett. Really, really appreciate it. And thanks all of you that are live with us right now on YouTube, as others going to be hopping in here shortly. Thank you so much. With that said, the guests of honor, Theme Park Groupie, so glad to have you. And if you share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and where those that are watching this can find you on social media.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, and congratulations on 1,000 subscribers. That's a huge note. They pretty much say the first 1,000 subscribers is the hardest to get. It takes as long to get to 1,000 as it does to get to 50,000 between the two. So it's a huge accomplishment. So congratulations. My name is Ben. I'm Theme Park Groupie. I kind of just started going. I've been to theme parks all through my life, and I really enjoyed them. But about 7 or 8 years ago, I had a really weird schedule, and none of my friends had the same schedule. So I was like, man, I'm bored. Let me just do something. So I started going to theme parks, and I really started getting passionate about it and learning, all the tricks and hints and stuff on how to have a perfect day to utilize your time the most. And I just really started getting into it more and more. And I was like, well, I could start documenting it here and there. So then the channel got started, and the first video I posted got about 500,000 views. So I'm like, all right, well, this is something I can do. So I kind of just kept pushing and doing it. So now I do it full time, and I enjoy it. I love every minute of it. It's a huge journey. I don't actually live in Orlando. I live in Jacksonville. So it's a lot of traveling, but I love it, and I really enjoy it. You can find me at pretty much anywhere social media wise, and YouTube mainly is my main hub there, and that's at Theme Park Groupie. So you can find me using that tag pretty much anywhere.
Yep. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, as you mentioned, it can be so hard, especially on platforms such as YouTube to, once you start that routine, okay, I'm going to go live on this day, or I'm going to post videos every other day. Once that one day you go without, they start looking elsewhere, and they go, oh, who else is on right now that I can watch? So it's so important to be, to balance that out and everything like that. So super excited to dive in. And the first thing I'd like to do is, sometimes they say you want to start with the bad news or the good news, right? We've all heard that expression. So this is going to be a positive podcast. However, let's go ahead and start with one of the worst, just to get that out of the way. I have not gotten the displeasure of having to ride this attraction. But I'd like to start with the Fast and the Furious. Not quite sure what went through the thought process here, because high potential, right? So I'll go ahead and start with you, Theme Park Groupie, and then Brian, please chime in right after as well, because if there is a ride or attraction that deserves the smack my head emoji, that is certainly the one. So go ahead and
I mean, it was definitely a progression too, because Transformers came out, and that was, I mean, almost exactly the same as Spider-Man, and people were like, all right, Spider-Man's cool, that's good. And then Jimmy Fallon came out, and then Fast and the Furious, and it just got out of hand. And I think, in my opinion, I think it's laziness, because all that footage and all that kind of stuff is from the tram ride in Universal Studios Hollywood, which I've never been. I'm going to go for the first time next week, so I'm super excited. But I've seen videos and stuff, so it's like pretty much just a copy and paste from that, but a long version. And the laziness truly shows, and I'm glad I'm not the only one. It's universally known that it's an awful attraction. So hopefully soon we might see something better taking up that space. But as right now, there's nothing. So
yeah, no, and there's some, believe it or not, there are some diehards of the attraction, but they are far and few between. So Brian, I'm sure you're going to echo those same sentiments, but go ahead, what you got?
People forget that first time I went to Universal, this used to be the earthquake ride years ago. And I remember going on that ride, and I was blown away by how good it was. It simulated like I think a 7-point quake. It was insane. You had water rushing in, you had fires, you had a tanker truck falling in. It was one of the most. It was by far the best ride at Universal at the time. It was so good. And the first time after returning to Universal after many, many years, and that was there, it had replaced it, and they renamed Earthquake several times. I forgot what they named it. I think Disaster or something.
Disaster, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I go on this, and I'm like, wow, and I love Fast and the Furious. These are some of my all-time favorite movies, although they should have stopped after Paul Walker died, in my opinion, but still great films. And I'm walking through the queue, and I'm like, man, this is a really nice, well-done queue. And as soon as I got to the ride, I should have walked right to the exit, because that was as good as it got. It was awful. And I think when people think of Universal on some of the rides, they think of screens. And this ride did not help that perception at all. But it is important to remember that there are so many great rides at Universal, and we'll cover all of those, I'm sure. But this is one of those rides that should have never got past concept. There's so many things they could have done with Fast and Furious, and it would have been great. They definitely picked the worst idea out of the barrel and went and stuck it up and see if it would stick, and it does not stick. That is the nicest thing I can say about it.
Yeah, I mean, and look at
other than that, I love it.
Right, and look at this. We bring up just the sheer words of that attraction, and Darren just dips on us and's gone. So that doesn't tell you right there.
Even the dogs were barking. That's how bad it was.
Yes, right.
I mean, even just the concept alone, it's a party bus.
Yeah.
The potential that this franchise had, and we get a party bus. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I know this is a family show, but it's kind of like being on Kong, except with streetwalkers, because there's that one part of the ride where you have these women, and it's just like, what is going on here? It is just, yeah. You look at some of the rides they've done. You look at Hagrid's. You look at Velocicoaster. You look at all these amazing rides, and the queues are amazing. And you just wonder how that. First of all, how did that ride even make it past concept? But how is it still there? Because it's like we've all said, it's universally hated. And I have found people that like it, and I immediately want to take them to a psychiatrist and let them talk about their issues. It's just not. I know I'm wailing on it, but yeah, I don't get that right.
we had to get that out of the bag first.
But now we're done. Everything's going to be good and positive from this point on.
Right,
Yes,
right.
it's positive moving forward. And with that positive, so one thing that especially those that go to theme parks in the summer months can appreciate is air conditioning. And Universal Orlando, they've lost some key rides and attractions along the way, but the one that I hope near and dear, R.I.P. Jaws, R.I.P. Back to the Future, etc. But the one attraction I really, really hope doesn't go anywhere is the E.T. Adventure. So I'd like to kind of go there next. So fortunately, it's not something that's open on your special attraction nights and whatnot. But what a great way to just, number one, to get some air conditioning time. And two, especially if you're live streaming, you have an option to actually do a ride on that. Yeah, one of the very few. So wanted to share your thoughts. Theme Park Groupie, on your, I know you're not from Orlando, but you visit, very often. But just your initial, if you can go back in time, your initial thoughts on that, and would you be happy to see something kind of take its place, or is that like a no, don't touch it kind of attraction for you?
Yeah, so like I said, I've kind of gone through my life. We've used to get annual passes when I was a kid and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I was about 5 years old when I first went to Universal and got to ride it, and I loved it. I remember when we first went in, my dad was just a jokester, and he told me, he's like, we're stuck. We were like waiting for everyone to get in. He's like, you got to start pedaling your bike. If you're not pedaling your bike, we're not going to go. And I'm like, where's the pedals? I just remember that memory, being 5 years old, just like thinking I was in charge of this ride. It was just so, I have a lot of memories with it. The smell, the queue smell, the queue itself, everything is just so near and dear to my heart. I love it. I'm sure most people know, but if you don't, Steven Spielberg, it's as close to his heart as anything else in his life. So basically, he has held that close and told Universal, if you do anything with this ride, then I'm going to take all the rest of my IPs. He just loves it that much. He doesn't want anything to happen to it, and I'm all about it. We, like you said, you closed Earthquake, Jaws, Confrontation, and Back to the Future, all these just classic rides. But I understand, you got to progress, you got to reach new audiences, and they're not there to make memories. That's not their primary goal. It's to make money, to have jobs and stuff. So things have to happen. But I'm just very grateful for Steven Spielberg to make that threat. I don't know, maybe that's a harsh word for it, but he has this relationship with Universal that it's just mutual, that they can't touch ET, and I love it because I get to have that nostalgia, but also it's such a great ride. I love dark rides. Like you said, it's such a nice break from the heat, and the theming is great because I don't know if you can tell, but I was born in the 90s, but I'm obsessed with the 80s, and so I feel like ET really has the 80s just wrapped up into this little film. And it's just, it means so much to me. And I hope it never gets replaced, at least not for a long, long, long time.
Yes, please no. Brian, feel the same way?
It is, the one thing Universal doesn't have that Disney has these great original story type rides, dark rides. You got Pirates, you got Haunted Mansion. Then you got the other rides like Small World and stuff like that. They're good classic rides. This is the closest thing that Universal has, and it's amazing that it's really untouched. I mean, it's like you go back in time. Again, I went to Universal when the park first opened in the early 90s. This ride is just about close to it is exactly the way it was back then. And you think about how much the park has changed. It is really, really something that something has stood the test of time at Universal. Again, you brought it up. One of the cool things about it is the smell. And even when you're walking past it, one of my favorite things about I love HHN, but I love walking, because you go backstage to go to some of the houses. And when you walk past the building for ET, you still smell that smell. It is amazing. And I remember for a while during, I think 2021, they, there's a scent that they use, and they were out of that scent, and it wasn't smelling like that for a while. So it was really odd, but it's a great ride. I hope they don't ever. And I think I did hear that right as well. Steven Spielberg really said, "Do not mess with this attraction."
Don't touch.
If I could, I think the only thing that I would do is maybe bring it up to today's technology, but keep everything the same. Do not change anything. Just bring up bring it up to the technology that we have today. I think it would be really, really something. That's the only thing I would change. Great attraction.
Yeah. And so shifting gears for a minute from rides, a show that I have not got the opportunity to see. So love to hear both your thoughts. Because, again, you go and yes, it's about the adrenaline rush, going on this, going on that, but you want to take breaks as often as you can. So the Bourne Spectacular attraction, I'd love to hear about that because I honestly don't know good, bad, indifferent. That's just one that I just really, it's there on the map, but that's about as far as I get. So kind of going around on that one, just those that are watching that may not know or watching this later may not know what that experience is about. If you would share a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, one of the classic attractions was the Terminator 2 show that Bourne replaced. I loved it. It was such an awesome show, and it really showed the tech of its time. And just, I feel like if outside of Haggard, this is one of the most like worthy replacements, in my opinion. I love Terminator, and it was tough getting rid of it. But Bourne really shows the tech of nowadays, because I'm not incredibly techy, but I can appreciate tech. And this show is the most forward show that there is. The screen is massive, this huge, high quality screen, and you have these sets, these on-board sets that go along with the movements of the screen. So they're jumping rooftops, they're riding cars, going up mountains, down pyrotechnics, holding on to helicopters. The actors are just clearing the room on these helicopters. Everything is coinciding with the screen, and you are there. You are completely immersed into this story of the Bourne series. I absolutely love the show. It's always tough to get rid of those old attractions, but I think to myself, if I could choose today, which one? 100% is going to be Bourne. Such an amazing tech forward stunt show. I love it.
Yeah, because I think the point with when you add an attraction like that is that someone's going to come back, that annual pass holder, they're going to see it and they're going to see it again and again and again. Because it's easy to, I've seen it, don't need to see it again. Some people are indifferent on certain things like, Carousel of Progress, like nothing's changed, but how could you not ride that ride if you're,
right.
If you're there for the entire day? Obviously, if you're there for a couple hours, you're going to skip that every once in a while. But so Brian, shifting my next question to you would be, I just want to shout, family's on right now. Eileen, of course, is on, and my brother Tom Redmond is with us as well. So shout out to you guys being on. But Brian, my question for you is one other attraction I'd like to cover tonight, one that's near and dear to your heart in one way or another, is the Popeye attraction. So we know that there's 3 water rides at Universal Orlando, and we'll get to other ones in the future. But the Popeye ride is a little bit unique. Until SeaWorld came out with Infinity Falls, that was the one water attraction you can guarantee you're going to get wet on. You're not going to get a little splash like you do at Animal Kingdom. You're really going to get soaked. So we've joked over the years about that attraction and whatnot. But do you put that at the top of those 3 water attractions there? Do you prefer one of the others? Kind of your thoughts on that? Because I just loved so much about that concept of being in that, in that type of ride, and you just don't know what turn is coming next and who's going to get the one that's the wettest and all that kind of stuff. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
First of all, when my channel was going, people would throw all kinds of tips just to get me to ride that ride, because they love seeing me just get destroyed by that cannon. And if I didn't get destroyed by that cannon, they would keep tipping until I went back on the ride, until I finally got destroyed by that thing. I'm gonna tell you something. You go on a July day, you're not even worried about air conditioning the rest of the day. you are so cooled off on that from that ride. And to really throw home the point of how soaked you get on this ride, get out in a boat, in the ocean, and just jump in the water. That's how wet you're going to get on Popeye, and I'm not even joking. I mean, and so if you're going and you don't want to get your hair messed up, or you don't, or you're wearing tennis shoes, do not ride this ride.
Yeah.
You are going to get drenched, and there's nothing to it. All three of the Universal rides are amazing. I love River Adventure. I love Ripsaw Falls. River Adventure is your classic ride. That classic water ride. It's got the little storytelling going on with Jurassic Park, and then you have that final drop, and which you get wet, but you don't get really unless you're sitting in the front. You're really not getting drenched. Ripsaw Falls, you get drenched, but nothing is on the level of Popeye. I don't understand why Disney doesn't have a ride like this, because it would be really, really nice. I mean, like I said, in the middle of the day at Epcot, who wouldn't want to have a ride like this? I mean, it doesn't fit at Epcot, but who wouldn't? Or Hollywood Studios, who wouldn't love to have a ride like this to where you're cooled off the rest of the day? I mean, I know I would. There's been so many days. But yeah, it's a great attraction.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're right, head to toe. So not sometimes you see those of you familiar with SeaWorld, the Journey to Atlantis and the video, it shows them, going like this. But you don't get that wet compared to that one. Kind of set the bar for sure.
Yeah.
So theme park groupie, I'm gonna touch on the next topic, something near and dear to my heart and Brian's heart as well. Haven't got to go this year, so I decided I started watching a few minutes of a video of Halloween Horror Nights, and then I was like, can't do it to myself. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get to go, so I put pause on that one. So let's talk about Halloween Horror Nights. So me personally, I first attended back in was 16, and I went all the way through 30. And then I think there's 1 year I didn't get to go, and then, but so you've been correct. This year?
Yeah. I have. Yep.
So my first question would be, just looking at everything, the fact that there's not as many APs, like I've always preferred, like it's nice to see those when you first walk up to Universal and you see the banners of all the AP houses and stuff, but I've always preferred the unique, original ideas myself. So right off the bat, off the cuff, did the original houses wow you this year? Like, was that enough to draw you in? Do you miss that extra AP or two, or what are your thoughts on that?
So yeah. I mean, they've been kind of pretty much for years. It's been 5 and 5, right? It's like 5 originals, and so they kind of started doing Universal Monsters, which they kind of considered the IP. So that kind of made it 4 and 6, and then now it's this year is 3 and 7. So it's kind of shifting. So it seems like a lot of their funding is potentially going to Epic Universe, so they're not getting as much for, because I mean, again, there's 5 scare zones, but this year the scare zone is basically just chainsaws at the front of the park, so it's only like 4 scare zones. All this to say, the park or the event itself is my favorite event of the year. I love Halloween Horror Nights, but it kind of has come downhill a little bit. Like I said, it's clearly with funding, but the original houses this year, it kind of almost shifted to where the Insidious and A Quiet Place, those are the scariest houses this year. Usually it's the other way. It's like it's more about the showpieces and tying in the movies into these scenes and everything. But man, Insidious is this year, I've seen all the memes. It's notoriously known for being the absolute scariest house this year, which IPs typically are not. It's usually the original houses. And I really enjoyed the original houses this year. The triplets that got me over and over and over and over again. But man, Insidious, that was crazy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like these videos where like before Insidious and then after, and it's like, so those are interesting. So
and there's this one hallway that you're going into, and then it's kind of like 3 sections. So you're going in between these 3 sections. One gets you from the left, so you're like, oh, you kind of shift over this way. Then one gets you from the right, so you shift back this way, and another one gets you from the left. I mean, you're just like boom, 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 scared, and it got me so many times.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. And Brian, I've got to ask another, outside of all the houses in the scare zone, one of the staples of the event itself is the pizza fries. And there's you're going to go for it each time, and if you're lucky enough, there won't be a line. But those watching that have no idea what I'm talking about. Now, let me preface this by saying, like, when you see the picture, you think this plate is like, this big and you're going to get a ton of stuff. And then unfortunately you realize that there's not much to it, but you savor every bite. I think that's a must do. Like, if we were to make a must do list, that has to be one of the top things on there. It's just and do they serve that year round? I'm assuming they do, but no, they do not. Okay, so
but you can get the pizza tots over at Islands of Adventure.
Gotcha. And Darren is back with us here. We're just talking, Darren, about and Brian, if you could share with you. So we're talking about the pizza fries as being a staple at Halloween Horror Nights. Though the obviously when you go to those events, you got to stop for a snack, you got to stop for a meal or whatever, but that's like a go-to. Have you ever had anything similar to that, Darren, with pizza fries, anything like that?
Well, here's the thing. Sincerely, Zeppelis, believe it or not. And a lot of people probably don't even know what those are. Basically, just take bread and throw it into a deep fryer and hope for the best. And it's actually very, very good. When I was real young, a lot of kids used to eat cotton candy, which I never thought going into a horror place with cotton candy. But the big pretzel also is a very big thing, because you can kind of hold it with just one hand and hold on to your significant other's hand, or that kind of thing. So that always worked. And my apologies, I had a little bit of technical issues. I have questions for all three of you, if you don't mind.
I do not mind, but just a quick shout out. Christopher Bennett, our sponsor, just popped in the chat, so just wanted to say hello. Thank you so much for watching along. Hey, Christopher Bennett. And Darren, go ahead. We're ready for you.
So here, what makes a successful theme park? And what's the difference between a theme park and an amusement park?
Okay, who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go ahead and go. It probably sounds kind of cliche, but it's the way it makes you feel. Like, you have fun at, like, not to bash any of these other. I mean, let me just give an example of, like, Six Flags. Six Flags is super fun, especially for, like, teenagers. They kind of go in a group and they kind of ride these rides, and they're super scared, screaming and hollering and all that kind of stuff. But what I love mainly about Universal is my all-time peak theme park. It really is the way it makes you feel. It's not just coasters and you're out in the blazing heat. You have this experience that it's an immersion that other amusement parks can't really. They just can't grasp like Disney and Universal can. You're walking into Seuss Landing and you hear the music playing in the background and you smell the popcorn, and then you go and ride Cat in the Hat, and it's what it feels like. I think that's a good difference between a good park and a park you go to once every few years or so.
Yeah, given no shade to, because I've been to a lot of parks myself, given no shade to Magic Mountain, for example, which is a fine park. It's a coaster park. It's more than fine. You have a great time there. I highly recommend it. But it's not a Universal. It's not a Disney. It's not a theme park. And I love what you said there. And Brian, I'd like to hear what you say as well with this. It's how you feel. It's tough to differentiate, but there's a difference. What do you think, Brian?
Well, you've got the thing most people don't think about is you've got teams of designers, or in Disney's case, Imagineers. In Universal's case, you've got these teams that are designing every little thing that you don't even think about. And maybe there's so much behind each little thing, like why they put a rock there, or I mean, or in Disney's case, you know what? Let's put a hidden Mickey. No one's going to notice. That's the stuff that just separates the men from the boys, right in the theme park world. That's what makes Universal and Disney just so much better. And this is something Universal has just been nailing it lately, and I expect to see a lot more of that come when the new park opens. But this is something Disney's done forever. And talking to some of the Imagineers, it is that I've known, and some people that have been on those teams, it is amazing the thought process. I mean, of every little detail, it is really, really incredible. And it's good when you go on a ride and you've been on it a million times. Then you go on that ride and you see something you never noticed before. That is what. That's why they're the best theme parks, and that's why they charge what they charge. Because you got some really talented people working on these things.
Yeah, you definitely do. I want to shout out. Eileen had mentioned, it's a good one. Think SeaWorld is the best. They treat the annual pass holders the best. Free guest tickets, amazing coasters, beautiful animal shows, but the food festival, some of the best cooks you'll find anywhere, and you're going to get a good portion too.
So, Mike, I didn't get your differentiator. What's the difference between a good park and a real theme park? The Mount Rushmores.
I think with a theme park, you can find yourself immersed where time is no longer a thing. You're like for Harry Potter World, for example, you can just go down like that rabbit trail, right? You're just, I'm going to look at the wand, and then all of a sudden you're having butterbeer, and then all of a sudden you're doing this and you're doing that, and you're just immersed and you forget kind of where you are for a minute. Whereas some of the other parks, like they may be great. Like I'll use Busch Gardens, Tampa, for example. I enjoy going there, but it is a lot of just coaster. They do have some animal stuff. So sometimes when I like my variety in there. And so I like to be able to, maybe it's going to get older, I don't know, but I like to be able to go to a land and just kind of forget about reality for a little bit. And so when you have those themed lands like that, that's what it does. Whether you're at Disney and you're going to Star Wars Land, which those that have never been, just a side note, those that haven't been to Hollywood Studios, I know we're talking about Universal, but you have Galaxy's Edge, right? But then you have the Star Tours attraction over here, and then we have, I think there's another Star Wars that they're kind of just, I bet if they could, they would tear it all down and re-put it together again if they could. But to me, it's being immersed in that experience, in that theme world that you're in for that day. So, what I wanted to ask you, theme park, yes.
Did you just say Star Wars Land?
Star Wars Land.
No, it is Galaxy's Edge.
It's Galaxy's Edge. Yes. My next question I wanted to hit on. I haven't got to see this, but the Universal Mega Movie Parade is something that I'm not too familiar with this. Theme Park Groupie, is that a new attraction or a new show?
Yes, they just started doing that. I believe it was July 5th they started, and now that Halloween Horror Nights is here, they're only able to do it a couple times a week. Honestly, I haven't seen it yet either. It's just not worked out. My daughter got sick, this happened, that happened. So I'm able to go to these parks, but I haven't happened to leave before anyway. So I haven't gotten to see it in person yet, but I've watched all the videos. I love that Universal is really, I feel personally, out of all the theme parks, including Disney, Universal listens to its guests over anybody. The fact that they're even doing this mega movie parade with Ghostbusters and Back to the Future and Jurassic World, and they're tying all these things that, even though they're not the most popular things, I mean, Ghostbusters is kind of making its rounds again with Afterlife and Frozen Empire, but like Back to the Future and E.T., it's like these aren't in the news. They just know that their guests love these old nostalgic classic attractions, and they're not only just listening to the guests and bringing forth like these it's basically annual pass holders that are loving this. It's people that, they come from another country and they're coming here for the first time. They don't have nostalgia to these old IPs and stuff, but it's really the annual pass holders that they're giving this to. They have such a good perspective on their audience, And that's something I can really appreciate that Universal does. Is even the new Lagoon show, same thing. That opened up a little bit beforehand.
Yeah.
I love the Lagoon shows, but I mean, this one is absolutely wild, and they throw in all these older attractions, and they throw in all these older films and everything, just really paying homage to the past of Universal. And it's such a good, again, what it feels like. Yeah, I'm a grown adult, but I have these tie-ins from when I was a kid watching Back to the Future with my parents and whatever, and just really enjoying it. And now as an adult, it's still coming around. It feels so good to have all these tie-ins.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing, like Darren, I know you're a big movie buff and movie fan. Brian, if you could share with Darren or those that may not know. So at Halloween Horror Nights season, we have what's called the Tribute Store, and it pays homage to not just those houses of the current year, but of other years, and then just in general, scary, spooky things in general. But throughout the year, that's also transformed into some other different tribute stores as well. So if you can mind just touching those that may not be familiar with what a tribute store is, or whether it's on Halloween Horror Nights throughout the year, because especially like someone like Darren himself, who's such a big fan of movies, what they could expect walking into that experience.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go back to the what was it, last year or year before last, where they did the combined Jaws, Back to the Future
last year. Yeah.
And what was the third one? I'm spacing what the third.
Jurassic Park. Was it? No.
Was it Jurassic Park? I can't remember, but I definitely know it was Jaws, and I know Back to the Future. And that, you obviously you've got other merch. They may it's maybe merch you've seen before at the parks, but there could be a lot of new stuff, new shirts, new jackets, hats, whatever. But the theming in there, I mean, they had the giant speaker that blew Marty across the room at in 1985, in the beginning of Back to the Future. They had there's so much stuff that was in there, and that you could look at. Oh, E.T. was the other one. I can't believe I forgot about that. E.T. was the other, and you're in Elliot's room, in the E.T. side of it, and then Jaws. It was just so well done, and it's almost like it's like whoever the teams are that are doing the houses, it's got to be the same. The same people have got to be doing the tribute store, because they're just so well themed. And that's one of my favorite parts of HHN is just how well themed the houses are. And you get that from you get that from the tribute store. And I think 3 times a year, or maybe 4, you have throughout the year they'll have different IPs and stuff that they'll celebrate, and every one is just amazing. I can't think of one that I haven't enjoyed. And you've got the Mardi Gras tribute store whenever they do Mardi Gras, and it's fantastic. Such a fun part of what Universal does.
Yeah, and I love how when you end in the tribute store, usually is always the snacks, right? Like the desserts and whatnot, movie themed or whatever themed that they're talking about. So we also gotta talk theme park Groupie. I'm wondering what is your go-to restaurant when we're going to Universal Orlando? And I know we just have about 10 minutes left here. So I'll start with you, and then Darren, I'd like to kind of just hear your go-to theme park, because one thing we talk about a lot on this podcast is what's our go-to when we're going to a ballpark, right? But it's a little bit different, or maybe it's not when you go to a theme park. So starting with you, for me, I like Mel's Dive-In or Die-In, just something in and out quick. It's not the best, but I like to, I don't get to go that often. So I want to be somewhere I'm not going to be, in there for too long. So that's my go-to, but what is yours?
Yeah, it really depends on where I'm at in the park. If I'm making a full day of it, I'm going to do both sides, Universal and Islands of Adventure. What I'll typically do is I'll go to Mel's Drive-In or Die-In for Halloween Horror Nights theme. But I'll most of the time I'm going out to City Walk, because Toostum's Chocolate Emporium, oh my word, my absolute favorite. I don't even know if I've gotten the same dish twice. I get something new every single time, and I'm like, this is my favorite. Oh no, this is my favorite. Oh no, this is my favorite. But then you end it with these shapes that are just larger than life. a million calories. I don't care. I'm walking around the park. I'll work it off. It's honestly, I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm going to Tombstones. I just love being able to go in there. And even if I'm not hungry, I get a shake. If I don't want dessert, I get a meal. Everything there is top notch to me, in my opinion.
Darren, you're up. Is it the turkey leg? I think you're the turkey leg kind of guy. Are you the turkey leg kind of guy?
Funny you mention it. It's not the turkey leg. It's not because here's why. It might be, and Mike knows me very well because I love my favorite turkey leg is the next one, but I have not gone there yet with my grown-up kids or without my kids. So I was a stroller, or I had something else, or I'd go there for work, and it's tough to be the boss holding the turkey leg. It's not good. You know, I mean, back to Mel's. Mike knows I love a good diner. To me, there's a time and a place for some beautiful. I know in Disney there is a French restaurant right near Club 33 that I really like. In there, I've had the gumbo in the Pirates of Penzance. I've had that, but give me Mel's. Give me a nice vanilla shake. Give me a hamburger, some fries with cheese. Get out of my way. Right?
I'm hungry.
100%.
Jake mentioned in the chat, turkey legs make me sick. It's the elephant peanuts of meat.
That's outstanding, and he's right.
Yeah, I mean,
and look, I don't want to bring it up because it's a kids show we have on right now. But those poor turkeys, at the end of the day, just leaving the park. You know, they're just feeling really bad. You know, you're eating one of their legs. It's just bad. No, it's good.
Yes. And taco helmet. Joe Alessandro,
Yes.
Thanks for hopping on as well, talking about the taco helmet.
Hey, Mike, I do have one I would like to throw out there that no one's mentioned yet. The shepherd's pie potato jacket that you can get in. It's like there's like a blue hut. Maybe it's green. I forget which color it is. Right outside of Diagon Alley.
Yes.
And it's this giant baked potato. You can get. They got several different ones. They have like a broccoli and cheese. They have a chili cheese. They have several different ones. Bacon. I think a bacon and cheese. But the shepherd's pie potato jacket, lights out. Really, really good.
Wow. I'm going for that. I didn't know that existed. I love shepherd's pie.
Yep.
And it's only $11.
Nice.
You walk out, and I mean, they give you everything, and that thing will fill you up, and that's all you need right there. Boom, you're done. Armo mentioned to Cowfish. I love Cowfish over in City Walk, and I am a sucker for Hot Dog Hall of Fame. I don't know why, but that one hot dog gets me every single time. I love it. I think it's the Detroit one. I love that. I love the hot dog. So those are my favorites.
So I got a question I wanted to ask, and it's just I'm looking at my piece of paper. I took my notes. I know we're leaving soon, but I want to ask legitimately the three experts right here. Whenever they retire a ride, I'm talking about Universal or Disney or whatever, there's always a pro, and we know they know what they're doing, so it's not questioning that. But can you name one that you wish they didn't?
Oh yeah.
Like for me, it's hands down. For me, the hands down one is, first of all, leave Space Mountain alone. It's iconic the way it was. What people need to understand is my grandfather rode this ride. My kids rode this ride the way it is. Leave it alone. It's good. And I felt that way about the Tower of Terror. I really did. I know that's kind of controversial, but I liked. It was nice. It was a throwback. I mean, what they have there now is beautiful, but tell me yours that you wish they never retired.
Well, fortunately, here we still have it in the Tower of Terror here in Disney in Orlando, at least, so it's not completely gone on our side, at least. Yeah,
not in California. Not in California. They moved
For me, it just it has to be Jaws. It may not have been the best ride of all time or anything like that, but it was iconic. There's just something about being goofy late at night riding that ride and just pretending to be, So to me, hands down, there wouldn't be a single in a world with so much negativity. If there was a post on social media that they were bringing Jaws back, I think it would be the first time there'd be no negativity, no negative people in the entire chat room, because everyone, I think, would want that one back. So, what about you, theme park Groupie?
Yeah, I'm going to jump on that with you. Jaws was the, I absolutely love Jaws. Jaws was another one that you know is outside. It has smell to it. So when you're walking by, you smell it, and you're like, I gotta go right. I gotta go do it. I have just files on my computer of people that play through. Sometimes I'll play it. I'm like, oh, I miss it so much. Again, it's one of those things where the replacements are so great. Like I've added it, we would have if Jaws wouldn't have been retired. Oh my word, Jaws was just there in conversation. I love the Back to the Future. Back to the Future is my favorite movie, my favorite movie. Oh man, Jaws had it. And everything Jaws was, I miss it every single day.
Yeah, can't disagree. For some reason, we heard every word you said, but there was some sort of weird, it almost sounded like Darth Vader was in the chat, was on the live.
Yeah.
So,
I think right now, theme park Groupie is my father. I mean, that's what it's like right now. That's what it sounded like. That was great.
Yeah, and I know, Darren, I know you got to bounce, Darren. We just got a couple minutes. Brian, what's yours?
Oh, I got 30, but I'll stick to a few. Universal, Back to the Future. I would love to see that. I really love that ride.
So good.
So much better than The Simpsons. I'm not a big fan of The Simpsons ride. Twister. I wish they would have never got rid of Twister for Jimmy Fallon. Although that was more of a show than a ride, but still. And over at now, I will say with Jaws, we did get Diagon Alley, and that Diagon Alley is spectacular. Although I would like to have Jaws back as well. At Disney, Splash Mountain, great movie ride. Those are the ones I would love to have back. Especially a great movie ride. I really, really love that attraction. I feel like I'm missing one at Disney that really is driving me nuts. It's not there. I wish we still had. I know we have it at Disneyland. But at Magic Kingdom, they got rid of what Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I would love to have that.
That was a great ride. Great pull, Brian. Great pull.
And I got to tell you, I was in a chat today on Facebook, and people were comparing Disneyland to Disney World. And I said, look, stop the comparisons. All you need to say is that Disneyland Park is so much better thought out and planned than Magic Kingdom in Florida. And it's not even close. It is amazing what they've done with the space at Disneyland and what they've just wasted at Magic Kingdom. If you go to Disneyland and you realize Galaxy's Edge is in Disneyland's Magic Kingdom, and then they still have all the other stuff that you're used to at Magic Kingdom. And the train's better there. Everything's better there. I know I totally went off the rails in this question, but
no. By the way, no. We got to wrap up. At least I got to. But you're right. You're so right.
Yeah.
Because I've been to both many times. I've lived out in California for 16 years. Trust me, you're spot on.
Yeah, and I know there's something else at Disney World that I'm like, man, I wish they'd bring that back, and I'm spacing on it, but definitely those. I would love to have those back. No doubt about it.
Yep. So I know, Darren, you got to run. So I'm going to ask, while he goes, I'm going to ask my last question of the night here. Okay. And that is, and this goes for both of you, Brian, theme park Groupie. When it goes, obviously we are familiar with long wait times, right? Yeah, especially at Halloween Horror Nights. So maybe starting there, or just in general, is there anything that's off limits to you in terms of that? Like, what is your number that you're like, peace out, I'll try again another day? Because we've seen some crazy things. I remember, Brian, back on a stream of yours a while back, it was the, I'm not going to use the word on my chat. So it was the bucket that we shall not be named. It was purple. And so I think it was 7 hours that people waited in line for this bucket.
The Figment bucket. Yeah.
Yes, you said it, not me. But yes. So there has to be like a sense of like, okay, this amount of time, it's not
Never
meant
again.
to be. Yeah, no. So, what would that be for you? What is your, I guess not magic number, but what is your number of no?
It's hard these days because Disney's just kind of a mess the way they've done stuff. Anything over 45 minutes, I'm kind of out, which eliminates a lot, to be honest with you. And then you're kind of stuck with the lightning lane or whatever they're calling it now. But 30 to 45 minutes is my window, and if it's beyond that, I'm out. Which means I'll probably never ride Flight of Passage again. At Universal, it's a little bit more forgiving with the wait times because their system is just so much better because of the Express Pass. Because few people will want to pay for it, so it's not, it doesn't hold up the main line, and the main line usually moves pretty good, especially after a certain time. But if you've got the AP Pass, you can do Express after 4. So. But for me, 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay. And closing out, what would you say on your end?
Yeah, honestly, it kind of depends. It kind of depends. Halloween Horror Nights houses, those are its own thing because
your experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if this is your one night. And it's like, man, I'm just gonna wait whatever wait time there is because I'll never get to experience this ever again. So
it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So with rides, it's like if it's my first time, I'm okay with waiting. Basically, with Hagrid, I showed up at 5:30 in the morning, and I finally got off the ride at 11:30. So it was about 6 hours I waited on opening day.
And it was worth it.
Yeah, it was worth it. But yeah, it was situational. So I'm gonna say if I go tomorrow, I'm getting up and I'm going to Universal. I'm about right there too, where 45 minutes. It's kind of like I've already done all these. This isn't the last day they're going to be open. There's no sentiment to needing to do it today. 45 minutes is my cap, and Disney is about the same. I would say maybe a little bit. I have a little bit more leniency on the opposite end where I go to Disney less. So it's kind of like I can just ride it. It's an hour, but I can just ride it because I know it's going to be a little while before I'm back at Animal Kingdom. But like you're saying, I mean, any more than an hour, I'm like, no. Flight of Passage, sorry. Bye.
Yeah. I just want to ask a question. Who waits over an hour for Peter Pan's flight? And please don't hate me for saying that. I just have never understood that. Every time I pass that attraction, I do not get it. I would wait, and I'd wait over an hour for Haunted Mansion because I love Haunted Mansion.
Same.
But theme park, I'm right there with you with HHN houses. Go get something to eat and prepare to wait because and it's worth it because it's gone after it's the event. So.
Yeah, and it's you're there for that's a whole nother ballpark. You're there for the experience. I mean, obviously, we're going to if it's 2.5 hours. I've seen stuff like that in the past. It's one thing, but if you never get that opportunity again, you can't just come back the next week or the next month. Then you're gonna wait. So this was a whole lot of fun. Thank you so much, Theme Park Groupies, for coming on. Brian hanging out with us as well, and I'd like I said, this is just part one. We got so much more to talk about. Let's do this again, maybe another month or so. We'll talk some Simpsons. We'll talk Men in Black. We'll talk some other good stuff at Universal. There's so much more, of course, Harry Potter World. So thank you so much for popping in with us. Again, Chris Bennett in the chat, thank you so much for believing in us. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you around the ballpark.